Coming up,
at age 9, I was molested. Okay, when I looked at the reality of my situation, I felt that I had no other choice than to do an abortion at age 16. So I bought my first home at age 24. This nice house that I bought, I had to rent out my house and go back to jungle to live. No, I mean, living in jungle, I made up my mind that I was never, ever gonna go back there because the violence.
Award-winning author of 10 books, inspirational speaker, and so much more, Crystal Daye is my guest this week on The Trailblazers.
Stay tuned.
The most prominent producer then in the industry tell Tony that he could not bust a female artist because
Failing is one thing. Failing publicly is a very hard thing.
I said I was holding my mouth, the lies were going, and I sat and I saw women on the TV just lying bluntly, just like that.
Released the all media survey, and when you look at the name Ron Mouchette, 0, 0, 0.
I had to fend for myself at an early age. In fact, my mother became mentally ill when I was 9 years old.
I sold everything and went to my wife and said, and she said to me, all right, no problem. She will back me. Just leave the house.
From entertainers, politicians, business leaders, and more, The Trailblazers with Tamara McKayle on YouTube has it all.
That I'm new to this.
I did movies with Denzel Washington. Then I wrote Baps, and that's starring Halle Berry.
You wrote Babs?
Wrote Babs,
yeah. Oh no!
Subscribe now for a brand new year of inspiration and strategies to make it from the best of the best. Plus catch up on episodes you may have missed. It's The Trailblazers with Tamara McKayle on YouTube.
So this week on The Trailblazers, as I mentioned in the preamble, I'm delighted to have Crystal Daye. Of course, she's an award-winning author. She's written about 10 books or probably even more. Best-selling author, inspirational speaker, life coach, and so much more. Crystal, it is a pleasure to have you, and you're looking so beautiful.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and I love the mission, the Trailblazer. So I'm excited to just have this interview and share with your audience.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, as I was mentioning, you have accomplished so much. And that is very inspiring to not only women, but just people in general. But not many people, or some people would know your story, but not everybody. And so we wanted to touch on that you grew up, I understand, in the inner city. So talk to us about your earlier years.
Yes. All right. So like you mentioned, I grew up in the inner city. I was born in Maxwell Avenue, spent many years living in a Kencut community and reside for a few years also in the Arnett Gardens community. So I tell persons that, just growing up, the reality of the situation was I grew up in, a lot of violence. The young girls get pregnant at early age. A lot of the boys get involved in gangs and guns. So that could have been my reality. But I'm so grateful for the parents that God has blessed me with. Even from a young age, I remember my father used to tell me that, hey, education is the way out. Education is you have to study, you have to do well, you have to go to school, and that is how you will be able to get a better life. So like many persons in the inner city, my parents are from very humble beginnings. I tell people that I was financially poor, but the truth is we were rich in love. And there were days that we went to bed hungry. I remember even going to school one year when I just passed for high school. I went to the Convent of Mercy Academy Alpha. And I remember for the whole year, I wear one uniform because we could not afford, more than one uniform. I remember even when I was preparing to graduate from high school, and I was, I'd got like the top girl of the school that year when I was graduating. And I was told that I would not be able to graduate because no school fee has been paid for basically maybe as long as I started the school. So, what I would say is that they tried their best. They did try their best. And why I say I was rich in love is because me and my siblings, we grew up having a dream mentality. Like we always knew that even though this was our reality, this wasn't where we had to stay, and that's why, even though growing up in inner city, your parents don't say, I love you, you don't get hugs and kisses. they were there. They were there. And even after my parents split, you know, there was still the support to say, hey, you can do better. So I think from that, one, I'm the eldest of the five of us now. My parents are four together, and then my mom is now married and I have a younger sister. From then, I just knew that a lot of responsibility was on me as the first one to ensure that I'm an example to my siblings. And I think that's what for years pushed me to, I've always been I did very well in school. You know, I'm very active. I remember being very active in my community, joining youth groups, you know, entering pageants. You know, up to this day, I'm still Miss Kencut, right? Because, you know, whatever I did, whatever I needed to do to ensure that I am always, you know, just going after my goals and dreams. And honestly, Tamara, I'll tell persons that as much as it sounds very inspiring, believe me, I had some really, really rough days. So, you know, at age 9, I was molested. You know, at age 16.
Whoa. All right. Before we even, because you're letting that one just slide like that. And I mean, I'm going to touch on that one that you just mentioned before you even touched to the age 16. But one of the things, though, I must comment is that I've generally always liked, one of the things I generally always like with persons who grow up in the inner city, or as we call it, ghetto, you name it, is that, and it doesn't even have to be inner city alone, because I grew up in country, but at the same time, it's like when you don't come from wealth, you have this sort of drive and you have this sort of ambition because you understand that, listen, you have to make it, and it's not just about making it for you. So I really applaud that, and I love that. So touching now on what you said happened to you at age 9, because you were just going to slide it over like that.
You know, so what I realize is that I don't really internalize things a lot. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I just process, this is what happened. So, you know, at age 9, like I mentioned, you know, I was just growing up, just trying to do your best, but life had some hard moments. And, you know, at age 9, being molested, for me, it wasn't one of those things that, you know, really I felt like affected me. It was just one of those things that it happened and you just have to move on. And I knew that if I didn't let my parents know, especially my father, because I knew if I told my father would probably be in prison, and I did not want that, you know. So I decided to keep this, like, so nobody knew about this until I actually wrote a book at age 24. You know, but I wouldn't say it affected me to the extent where, you know, it crippled me or anything like that. It just kind of made me very protective of, especially my little sister, and it makes me very protective of young girls, because this is the reality, Tamara. As I was also
Age 9 though is a young age. That's, you're a little kid, and even though you said that you don't think it has affected you in a certain way, but it must have, Crystal. It must have.
It probably did. But as I said, I don't think I internalize things very often. Also, the truth is, there are many persons that I know that have been through this. And I just realized that, because I remember even at age 10, 11, the men in my communities, the same men that my father used to, you know, that used to cross me across the road at age 6, by the time I was 10, 11, were now telling me that, you know, we should be in a relationship together and stuff like that. So I think from a young age, I just knew that men, you have to be very careful, because sometimes what you see is not necessarily, you know, they're not necessarily looking out for your best interests. So it makes me very protective of my space, and also protective of persons that are around me, because unfortunately, we live in a society that a lot of predators are.
Yes.
And I think I was very smart enough from a young age to understand this.
Yes. All right. You were saying no, age 16.
Yeah. So at age 16, you know, I remember, you know, just doing very well in school. And, you know, I told my mother that, you know, I won't have sex until, you know, I passed my sexy age and etc. And then growing up, again, just seeing a lot of young girls, their life a lot of their life just kind of paused or ended to an extent when they got pregnant. And unfortunately, at age 16, I got pregnant. And again, it was one of those things that for me, okay, when I looked at the reality of my situation, I felt that I had no other choice than to do an abortion at age 16. And again, one of those things that you don't really super internalize. You just know that you just have to do what you felt like you have to do. And yeah, and then by then I would have known a lot of young girls that would have done that. So, you know, it's not like it was the environment. Again, my parents knew nothing about this. You know, they actually did not find this out until the week before my book came out. Right?
So hold on, at 16 years old, and you went and did an abortion on your own?
Well, I had an adult accompany me, but it was not my parents because they did not know. No, the truth is, if I told my mother, I would not have been chastised. She would not, like, I know my parents, they would not have, like, but I just did not want to disappoint them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to feel like a failure, especially, you know, you just like graduated top girl at the school, you know, everybody thought that you're the smart girl, and then you made this choice. Like, I'm not sure at that age that I was able to deal with the consequences of dealing with a child and dealing with teenage pregnancy.
Wow. And we appreciate you being so authentic and sharing that, because I'm not sure why, but this is the first I actually know that as well. So I didn't even know that. So, I mean, you also, I'm sure, I guess that's also what has led you to have this mission to empower women and young girls and young ladies to be a better version of themselves, especially because you yourself would have gone through certain experiences.
Yes. And I mean, as young as I can remember, I always wanted to become a politician. I always wanted to get into politics. I always knew that I could get into politics because, again, just growing up, I felt like growing up in the inner city, there weren't many people that came to our rescue. And for me, growing up, I always felt like politics was a way for me to serve people. So while now I'm on this mission as a Christian woman, you know, writing books and all of that, it's not surprising. It's just the avenue. I always thought that I would be doing this through politics, helping people, etc. But I am now doing the same thing in just with another vehicle, you know, because I always just felt like, you know, many people did not have an option. Many persons did not get exposure, you know. One of the reasons why I'm at where I'm at, because of the things that I've been exposed to. But it meant that I had to get into spaces that I felt uncomfortable. And many persons growing up around me, I don't think they had that opportunity. Tamara, when I think about the yard that I grew up in, 3 out of a few of us of the girls, where 3 of them actually became exotic dancers. These were girls that we went to basic school with, primary school with, and by the time they reached 17, 18, they didn't get subjects. They were involved with men that didn't value them. They felt like the only other option is to get into prostitution or exotic dancing, etc. And for me, you know, just remembering them at young, you know, all of us at a young age running up and down, it's not that they didn't have potential, they just didn't have the right exposure. And they didn't know better.
Wow. So guide us, because even though, and you rightly mentioned that even despite of all the things that you went through, you seem to have always had that sense of purpose. As you mentioned, you wanted to be in politics. You didn't know it would turn out in this route. By the way, you could still be in politics anyway, you know. But in any event, what led you now down to this path of becoming the Crystal Daye that we know of today, the author, the speaker, the coach? What led you down that path?
I felt like God's hands was always on me. But outside of that, there was just an ambition that I had from as young as I can remember. I remember at age 16, when it's 16, 17, I was in sixth form and I told my mom that I was not going to go back to sixth form because I was just tired of going to school hungry. I was just tired of not having money. So I told her I was going to work, you know.
Wow.
And I'd gotten in Campion sixth form, and she just could not afford the school fee, and that is the reality. And I said I was going to work. So at the time, the hard program, they had the hard program and they placed us in, you know, in jobs, and I was placed at the First Caribbean Bank. And for me, you know, just being in the bank again, the exposure that you have to things and people and options, you know, I always say, okay, I knew that I needed to get a degree. Now, initially, I was thinking to get a degree in actuarial science because I was very good at math, or I could get a degree in law. But again, financially, there's no way I could have afforded that. So I decided to stay in school and to go to school part-time, and business was the easiest thing to do. I was also very good at accounts, you know, I was very good at business. So I did my degree part-time. Again, just continue, just seeking, going up the ladder, you know. So I started working in the government. And one of the things that was common though, I was very active in my community, as I mentioned. So I'm always doing, you know, community youth clubs. I was the PR, you know, I was a vice president. So I was always very active in that aspect, but I'm always working, going to school, along with partying, because by then I was a very avid party goer. And then to cut the story short, I made a decision to give my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I think while I did not understand the fullness of what Christianity meant, I knew that there was a God, and I believed that there was a bigger purpose for my life. And even though I got the Christian thing wrong a lot of times because I got pregnant in church, which, you know, it's like, you know, you just feel like you're doing the right things, but still getting a lot of things wrong.
Well, none of us are perfect.
Well, I mean, me and you know, growing up in church, a girl get pregnant in church.
Yeah, there's this stigma for real.
Yeah, you know, but God has been so faithful. And when it was about age 24, Tamara, I remember I was at a place in my life where I felt like I made it for the most part. So I bought my first home at age 24. This was the first time I'm living in a house in a house with I wasn't sleeping on the ground, because for many years, one of the things I didn't tell you was that we lived in a board house with outside toilet. And there were 5 kids, 6, no, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 kids, no, 6 kids, 2 adults, 2 bedrooms. So it meant that me and my brother had to sleep on the ground. Wow. So I'm this girl working at this bank. I'm at gala party. I'm asleep on the ground.
Wow.
Right? But to be honest, like, I've always been very, very vision tunnel. So I knew that it wasn't like, you just did what I had to do. So at age 24, I bought my first home. To God be the glory. You know, 25, I bought my vehicle. You know, I'd gotten this very good job in the government sector. And I looked at my life and I'm like, I made my parents proud. You know, I'd graduated from college. You know, I was,
keeping it up.
But it never felt enough. And this was what started my pursuit of purpose, because I was like, after I was doing my master's now, I was like, is there more to life? Do I just climb up the ladder? What is next? And it was this pursuit of purpose that let me realize how passionate I am about teens. I'm passionate about empowerment. I realized I was a good speaker. I was very good at writing. I wrote my first book. I started to host events. And 7 years later, I am now getting paid to travel to speak. I am, I've published 10 books. I'm now full-time in my business as a publisher, and we have worked with over 500 authors in over 13 countries in the last few years. And I would say the top 3 things was, one, I was very, very vision focused. So no matter how hard life was, I will throw, you throw the towel in, but God throw it back to you. It's like, no, I got you. I had big faith. I had big faith that I was born for more than this. I had to believe that, because around me, sometimes it didn't feel that way, but I had the faith that I was born for more than this. And then 3, I think I was definitely willing to do the work. So if it meant that I used to sleep at UA, because that is it, you just had to sleep at school to study. I remember preparing for CXCs, and my parents didn't have computer for me to type up SBA. It meant I have to go to my different friends' houses to type up the SBA. It meant that I had to beg the teacher to let me come to class, because my parents couldn't afford, and I had to have no shame to do these things, so I was willing to do the work.
And I really love that point. In fact, I like all of the points that you just mentioned, having that tunnel vision and the discipline and doing the work. That is so crucial. The big faith as well, that's something I'm big on. But doing the work is so key, because you can have the vision, you can have that faith, but then you also have to play a role. And I mean, buying a house in your early 20s, it's not an easy feat. So you must have had certain disciplines as well to be able to have even accomplished something like that.
And big faith. To be honest, God has been faithful. I don't know. Some people might feel like, oh, sometimes Crystal is too preachy. She talk about God a lot. But I've seen the favor of God. Tamara, when I was buying my home, I did not believe I could qualify for 24. You just do not qualify. At the time, you just did not qualify for NHT points like that. I was not in a job at that time that could cover my mortgage. So it was just favor. When they said to me that I was approved, I remember the lady just sitting, I just sat there for few minutes, what you mean? It's like, come collect, you can collect your keys in 2 months' time. I just sat there this is happening. This is really happening. When I moved in the house, I barely had anything, but I didn't care. I didn't put on my credit 1 year later, right? I didn't care, but God, the favor of God has always just been there first and foremost. I just had to believe God with all my heart that he would just bring things to pass for me.
Wow, that is amazing. And again, it's such a testimony. It is whatever stage of life, the important thing is if you have and you practice some of those tenets that you have mentioned, then you can achieve, you can achieve something that is even bigger than you. All right, so talk to us now about living the life of your dreams now. I mean, I know you probably say you're not fully there yet, but to write 10 books from 1 to 10, that's impressive. What led you down that path where you decided that, okay, after you wrote the first one, I want to write 2 more and 3 more? Tell me about that.
So the truth is, I believe that book solves problem. And I made a decision when I came into ministry first, then entrepreneurship, that I'm a problem solver and I get paid to solve problem. So everything that I do through my books, my books are not just, yes, they're inspirational, they're very godly book. I believe that, these are books that God has placed me on this earth to write. But also when I write books, I look at what problem am I solving? Who am I solving the problem for? So how am I able, I would just sit down, for example, one of my last book, Dear Insecurity, that was written because I know I struggled with insecurity. My little sister, I didn't mention it, but my little sister, and she's the youngest for my father, she died in 2018, just suddenly, and that really hit my family and hit us very hard. But one of the things, when she was diagnosed with sickness, I remember she would always say, Crystal, if God give me opportunity to live, I would not allow my insecurities to not let me pursue some of the things that I wanted to. And that conversation keeps coming up in my head. How am I allowing insecurity to stop me from doing whatever it is, whatever it is? So I wrote that book as a way to give women permission to say goodbye to those insecurities, because the truth is, on the other side of your insecurity are your greatest dreams. So for me, I write books because I solve problems with books. So that's how I've been able to just, always find something, because there are a lot of problems to solve in this world. And many persons are choosing to add to problems instead of being problem solvers. And I have decided that I will be a problem solver in this generation. And even when I speak, even as I coach, even in my business, I'm always thinking, what problem people are willing to pay to solve, and how can I be that problem solver? And if you think about life like this, then your business will flourish, your brand will grow, because a lot of people think their brand is just about inspiring, and no, it is, people are looking for things and you have to show up, and I choose to show up.
Oh, that is so true. That is definitely true. So, but moving from writing those 10 books for yourself to actually running an actual business, because you're an author for yourself, but also for others, publisher, you have a whole company operating. So what led you down that path? Because again, is it solving a problem, merging all of your skill sets? Tell me about that.
And then also, so in 2016, I was very, very, very happy in my 9-to-5 job. I worked as a senior procurement officer. The company that I worked with the government. My company actually wanted to send me to go do my master's in procurement, because procurement in the government was growing at the time. And I was just at a great place in my career, but I felt like there was more. I felt like God was calling me to more, and the entrepreneurship bug kind of bit me at that time. And I'm like, what can I create a business around? And I remember working with a business coach, and she said, why not help other authors to write books? And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. Because at the time I just had one book. So I'm like, I don't have a degree in English. I don't, like, how would I do this? But everything is, when you make up your mind to do something, everything falls in place. So it so happened that I got connected with another person that has been publishing for years, and I hired him on my team. And then I started to just study, buy books about publishing and all of these things, and just put it out there. And people just kept coming to me because there was a problem to solve. And the more I learn, because I study the industry. So people don't like, the Bible tells me to study to show thyself approved. So I study, the courses, I go to conferences internationally to know what's happening in the market, what's happening in the publishing market. And my business just kept growing and growing and growing. And we are going through another transition now in the business, because what I found was that for years I could help people to write the book and publish, but especially a lot of Caribbean authors, their books are not selling. So now I'm in a place like, oh, can I now, get into connect with people, publicity, which is how we would have connected recently on a project, because I'm like, oh, can I get publicity, marketing, all of these things, so that when the books go out, it's not your 100 friends and family, but I'm on this mission to reach millions, and I can't do it on my own. I need a team.
Definitely. And being a New York Times bestseller, because I think in the publishing world, that's like one of the big things. New York Times.
It is a big goal, yes. Yeah. Once you hit that New York Times bestseller list, you make it.
Exactly. But talk to us about the other things that you do, because it seems to all be connected, though, as a coach, and a mentor, a minister in your own right as well. It all seems to be connected to that greater mission of, I wouldn't even necessarily say inspiring, but it's inspiring, but also, as you rightly mentioned, healing lives and pouring into others. And is that specifically just women or people in general?
I do think that my main niche is women, to be honest, and I would say women of all ages, but at different level, because I do have a Empowering Girls Club, which is where I mentor teen girls. And this is a free thing. I don't, this is my give back to how can I just pour into the next generation. But in terms of business wise, I do work with a lot of men, but I know that men are not necessarily my main target. Men are just attracted to the things that I'm doing because I can solve their problems, right? So I do know that my mission is to empower women to live wholesome, godly lives. And a part of this is to 1, have intimacy with God, 2, understand their identity in Christ, and 3, to use their gifts to impact lives. I think most of us don't realize, because the truth is, Tamara, if you had told me 2014, 2015, when I was 24, 25, thereabout, tell me that you were talented and gifted and all of these things, no, I was bright. I could go to school, I could apply for a good job, did not know, but I've learned that we're all gifted in different areas, and sometimes we don't realize how powerful our gift is until we start to give ourselves the permission to show up differently. My focus is book, brand, business. So I help persons to share their story or their message in our book, help them to grow a brand that will have a global impact, and then I help them to create a business so that they can leave financial legacy beyond them. So that's my new mission right now. I don't really do life coaching, all of that anymore. I'm a mother, so I love my daughter is 11 right now, so she's into track and field. So trying to be a single mother and trying to balance that. I love to travel. I love my family and I love cooking. So I've learned how to live on mission, but live on purpose, and part of purpose is to ensure that I'm enjoying this life as best as I can.
And I love that, because there is the need always for balance in life, and that is so crucial. So Crystal, what's your message, and what are some practical strategies that persons who are watching, that viewers can take from your interview? Because you've shared quite extensively, but some practical things that they can start today to start living that life that they dream of. And they look at your story, a little girl in the inner city, and not only did you make it out, but you really blossomed, you really accomplished a lot. What are some practical things that we can do, no matter our age, stage, situation, circumstance in life, to also elevate ourselves?
I love that question. So I'm gonna tell you a brief story. So my mother at 39 years old didn't have a birth certificate. And I remember for years, she would blame my grandmother to say, she didn't register and, she didn't get to go to the best schools because she didn't have a birth certificate growing up. And I remember in her late 30s, I remember saying to her that, hey, you could blame your mother up to age 18 thereabout, but at 20 you had your first child. Like, you could have gone and look about your own birth certificate. So she had this dream of always wanting to travel. She always wanted to go overseas, etc. But of course, you don't know birth paper. You can't get a passport, then you can't get a visa. And, in some way, she was inspired by that conversation that we had. And she went to look about her birth paper. She got her passport and she was able to travel. Now, I share the story that it took her at age 40 for her to take action. Somebody that's listening, I'm going to use that story just to share 5 quick points of how you can accomplish success. Number 1 is that you have to realize you are your own rescue. I could, for real, make an excuse because I grew up in poverty, because I grew up in a community that is filled with violence, because I was molested, because I did an abortion, because of all the things that could have happened in life, I would have turned out differently. But I, from a young age, realized that I was responsible for my decisions, and I can, no matter what choice I made bad before, I can choose to choose differently because I'm my own rescue. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that you have to have a dream that is bigger than where you are at. And for her, it was, I just wanted to travel. I wanted to go on a plane once in my life. I want to go on a plane. Of course, now she lives overseas, so she travels a lot, right? But again, that would not have been possible if she didn't. So I say that for me, at different levels in my life, I had different visions. I had different, so, you know, when you just start a business, you want to earn your first client, and then you want your 10th. And for me, while I have a big picture of what my life look like, I do set goals that are in tangent to where I want to go. And I think that's number 2 step for you. Like, see the vision, but willing to make goals and set goals to accomplish this. Number 3 is that the faith. Like, I can't tell you how important faith is, right? So I'm a Christian, so you hear me talk about Christianity in terms of my faith, but having a faith that things, no matter how bad it is right now, no matter how the hand that you have been dealt with, that it can change, right? It can change, it will change. And if you are willing to do the work. So one of the things people wouldn't necessarily know is that when I decided to step out in faith, start my business, this nice house that I had bought, I had to rent out my house and go back to jungle to live. No, I mean, living in jungle, I made up my mind that I was never gonna go back there, because the violence, I mean, I remember when I was in sixth form and there was a big war that was happening. I kid you not, every single day somebody died. Like gunshot, you have to sleep on the ground because gunshot from night till morning. And I vowed, once I bought my house, there's no way I'd visit them, but I don't even sleep down there. And I had to give up my house because I could not afford, because I'm building this business. I had no money. You understand? So I had to do what I need to do. And I remember a specific time, a friend came down there, and, you know, I'm social media, I look nice, I'm doing all of these things. And she's like, this is where you live? And it was in a way, you know, to kind of like you're on social media. But yeah. I'm like, I got to do what I got to do. Yeah. You understand? Like, I have my own home, but I'm not going to be in this house and I can't pay the mortgage or anything like that. I had to go back. And there was so much blessings about me going back down there, because it was during that time my sister got sick. And I was able to spend time with my family during that 2 years that I was down there. My sister got sick, my grandmother got sick, both of them were in the hospital at the same time. If I was like, it allowed me to spend time with them, and now both of them have passed away. My brother at the time had no transition, was transitioning to migrate, right? So again, even though the house was packed, even though I was very uncomfortable, right? I saw the blessing after of my decision to be there. Again, because I don't see myself as a victim, I see myself as a victor.
And I love that mentality, because it speaks to the fact that sometimes you just have to, you have to do what you have to do.
I think number 4, in terms of accomplishing, is to realize that I don't have to do it alone. I don't have to do it alone. You understand? So it means that I invest in myself very heavily. I'm always learning. I'm always going to events. I'm always, you know, doing things that I want to be exposed to greater things so that I can become a better version of myself all the time. And the final thing I would say, in terms of just accomplishing success, is to think about others while you're on this journey. The truth is, I write books not because I want people to say, oh, you're a 10 times Amazon best-selling author. You know, I mean, I've gotten many awards for my books. No, I write books so that I can serve others. As I mentioned, my main motivation in life was to be a role model to my siblings first. So everybody else that was a role model, great, nice. But the truth is, it was siblings, because I wanted my brothers to have an option that they didn't have to go guns, and they didn't. None of my brothers got involved in violence. My little sister, you know, to God, her soul rest in peace, she didn't get caught up in, you know, all of that. She saw that she had a different option. So living a life that is outside of you, and that has been a mission of mine. So yes, they're older now, you know, that's not, so no, I do know, you know, try to be an example to my daughter now. I do try to be an example to the young people that I am now speaking to and encouraging. And of course, you know, I'm able to now share on platforms like these my story so that you can be inspired too.
Wow, I love it. And you definitely are inspiring, have inspired, and we just pray for your continued success in your business, in your growth, and in all that you do, and in Brand Crystal Daye. Thank you so much, Crystal. Such an inspiring and a wonderful interview. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you for all that you're doing too.
Hi everyone, I'm Tamara McKayle, television and radio presenter, producer, communication specialist, and of course, producer and host of the Trailblazers series. And I'm inviting you to be a part of the Trailblazers family as we continue to grow. So all you have to do is just click that subscribe button. Make sure you click that notification bell so you are alerted as to when we have new episodes, and join our family for weekly inspirational episodes that will not only lift your spirits, but give you the tools, the keys, and the strategies that you need so that you can walk in your purpose, blaze your trail, and be all that you have been created to be. Thank you.